Welcome to Lift History. I'm not in my basement gym today. I'm here with Chris from Mutant Metals, and I'm sitting in Mutant Metals shop. So welcome, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming down.
Listeners, viewers, if you haven't seen the tour video, please hop on my YouTube channel, Vintage Weights PGH, and check out the tour where Chris walks me around this shop to take a look at some of the different machines and some of the different things that he uses to make his products. But on this episode of Lift History, I want to just get a little deeper into the history of Mutant Metals, how it came to be. So Chris, in the tour video, you showed me the first machine you got, and that came from your great uncle.
Yeah.
And then things branched out from there.
hmm
But let's push back a little, before that. So you're a home gym owner. I walked through your garage gym that's storing a lot of stuff for the shop now.
Yeah.
So were you always making things though? Were you, doing stuff with your hands throughout your life?
Um, before I started this, I was working in a foundry, so we did a lot. We melted metal. We did. I did. I ran induction furnaces. Did metallurgical analysis. Um, fork trucks. That's where I learned the weld. That's where I picked up a lot of the stuff that I know, minus the machining portion.
Gotcha.
And it just kind of started into making stuff for myself. Really couldn't afford to buy brand new dumbbell handles or tempering
Yeah,
devices, and it worked out because I was at a foundry, so we had scrap sometimes that I could practice with, and
perfect.
went to YouTube University to learn machining, and
Yeah, yeah.
the knurling took a long time to get right, but yeah, I mean, it just started for our own purposes of making what we needed to lift, and because me and my buddy, we lifted in the gym there, and we were competitive power lifters for a little while,
Very cool. Yeah.
and needed a squat rack, and we spent all our money on bars and plates, so
Yeah, so you needed to
needed
fabricate what you
everything
could.
else, right?
Nice. So then, that need for some of the equipment, the power rack, reverse hyper that you mentioned in the tour, that drove some of it at first. So then, where do you cross over from making some things for yourself, for you and your buddy who are power lifters, to, hey, maybe I could sell a couple of these?
Yeah, so I told this story before, but I ran into a guy, my buddy Hubble, which you actually know too.
Yeah, yeah.
He was selling a piece of equipment. I wanted to buy something that I seen in the background that he wasn't really selling, so we got to talking, and I told him that I'd been making some of my own stuff, and he asked me, well, can you make me something? And I'm like, I guess I could, So he wanted a reverse hyper, a rack mounted reverse hyper, which I could send you a picture of, and a dip attachment. But the thing with the dip attachment was that he had two younger kids that played baseball. He wanted them to be able to use it. He
Gotcha.
needed to be able to use it. So, like, what can I do? Originally, I was going to try to attach two separate sets of handles to it somehow and have a
Yeah.
close one and a wide one. And I finally just figured out, we'll just make the handles removable so we could move them, to different settings. And the original one had two settings on it.
Okay.
The mount wasn't very good at all. The reverse hyper was actually pretty nice. I was more proud of that than the dip attachment. But it got picked up. I posted it on my personal page. A couple guys were talking about it. And then it got picked up by Garage Gym Experiment, Jake.
Yeah.
And the next day I had maybe 40 people in my inbox saying, hey,
Nice.
can you make me one of these? And
So you saw the demand.
right,
Like,
for a little bit there, I was like, I can't make these. I can't sell these. Like, I don't like the mount. I don't like the way, how it is. And so I was like, but give me a couple weeks or so, and let me try to make something that I maybe could sell.
yeah.
So that's where the first dip attachments started coming out. And I was at work one day. people were messaging me on Instagram asking, want to buy a dip attachment, and it was a particularly shitty day at work.
That probably helped
And I
in the long run.
walked in the office and told them that I quit.
Yeah.
So,
I
and that was it.
I wonder how many viewers that's like their dream. Being able to,
Oh,
on a
man.
bad day, to be like, you know what? I'm out.
It feels good for a little bit until you realize what you did.
Until the anxiety
Yeah, right.
sets in. You're like, oh, geez, bills are coming due.
And that was the biggest thing in the beginning I knew I couldn't make things very fast, so I tried to just sell as much as I could make. But we ran in, if you scroll back through my Instagram, you'll see all kinds of posts about, that thing breaking down and machines breaking down, and there's no parts exist for those machines anymore. If we need a part, we got to make the part. And I work with a machine shop in Ohio that helps me do stuff like that.
Well, Mike from Microgains, when he was on Lift History, and I was interviewing him about the growth of his business, something he mentioned was that sometimes he felt like customers didn't quite recognize that it was like himself and two other people.
Yeah.
And that was down the road. Early on, it was just him, like in his shed, spray painting fractional weight plates. So when it comes to lead times and order fulfillment and all these things, do you sometimes get the impression that a customer doesn't realize that it's Mutant Metals is you and your wife down here in the basement, that they expect like a Amazon one-day shipping, overnight shipping or something?
My wife is upstairs. She can't work with me because she has some health issues.
enough.
But I have my cousin's fiance comes in here, and she, pretty much does every part of the process just like I do, minus the machining and welding.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I get emails all the time that are Dear Mutant Metals team. I understand it. Like if you're not watching the videos online or you're not following the pages, we only have under 7,000 Instagram followers. Not like everybody that comes across our page. I think we got 100,000 page views on our website last year. So not that many people are going to know. A lot of them do. We get a lot of good emails about, we know what you guys are doing, and those are nice. But there's definitely been some nasty emails where, and I understand that something that's supposed to take 10 weeks takes 18 or 20 weeks. Then
you get angry.
It's a problem. But
a lot of I mean, I'm just speaking from my financial background and my means and what I can put into my gym. Purchasing the UDA from you, that was a big purchase for me. That was like, whew, I'm going to put together these dollars and I hope it works out.
It doesn't help that it's expensive too.
Well, what I was going to say was, I completely knew who you were, and I didn't know you personally or anything, but I knew your company. I knew who Mutant Metals was. Did not care how long it took for it to get finished. The entire time I was saving money to buy it, I knew that and was like, whatever. I don't care how long it takes this man to make this thing. I want it. This is what I'm buying. But if I put myself in the position that I didn't know any of that background, and I was like, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger here. I'm going to click the button and buy this.
Right.
And then it takes, months and months. Then, I guess I could see where they're coming from. Like, what the heck? But on the other hand, I think in general in life, even outside of the home gym and fitness industry, a little politeness goes a long way. You can still go about it in a polite way that, hey, I placed this order, just want to check in, see how it's going.
95% of people are pretty good. You get a couple people that are particularly nasty, but that just kind of comes with
the
selling
territory.
Stuff,
yeah, that comes with it. I even have my trolls on weight restoration videos, which I'm like, really? This is the place you want to come bring your hate? Weight restoration videos? So, but when it comes to, scaling your company and keeping up with demand, supply versus demand of what you're doing, on Garage Gym Experiment podcast with Jake, you had mentioned the challenges of that like stuff took off at a rate that like not just your machines couldn't keep up, you couldn't keep up. It was just, getting pretty bonkers. So then, whenever the Rogue situation happened, and then Rogue started making the UDA, I remember your post about it mentioning that, like, this may be kind of a blessing in disguise. This may be something that sort of helps that. It's been some time since then. I don't know how many months now, but with a little time since that point, has that sort of helped how the business runs? Has that helped in a way to
It's
fulfillment and things like that, and
it's
scaling your
helped.
business?
Not a lot has gone into actually increasing the scalability of the business because what I mentioned was we kind of want to, I want to step away from a lot of manufacturing. I mean, we're working a lot of hours a week. My wife has trouble doing some stuff. I'd like to be able to give her a hand more. We have our kids, and we just can't be working as much as we are, and do normal things.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of it is getting her in a better spot with her health, and so the idea is and we're slowly transitioning to that as we whittle down orders, is to kind of get away from being a manufacturer as much as a developer.
Okay.
The Rogue stuff helped a lot as far as we're not worrying so much every month about, oh, we got a car payment coming up, we
Yeah.
got this, whatever. So that's helped a lot with that. It's not so much that we could just go out and now we could buy CNC machines and do all this crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Life hasn't changed
Right?
overnight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still down here. I still have to get the orders out. We're
Yeah.
still making everything the same way for the most part. We are talking to other people that can help us out with stuff like that, but the transition to not doing that is going to take a while. We're still having to take in orders. We can't just, if it was so much that we could just shut everything down, I would love to take, 4 months, clear all the orders out, and then just completely transition it over to where I see it going.
Yeah.
But it's not quite there yet. Hopefully, Rogue did mention that they're going to come out with colors on the UDA, so I'm hoping that helps with sales quite a bit. Because a lot of my market are people that want to customize their stuff. So,
That was me.
texture black is great, but not everybody wants texture black. So, hoping the colors do something.
And I'll drop a link, by the way, viewers, listeners, if you're interested in an ultimate dip attachment, a UDA, I'll drop the link for Rogues.
And Rogue is the only
Mutant
place
Metal.
you can get them right now. I'm not
Exactly.
selling the dip attachments anymore.
So you can head to that link to Rogue and get yourself a UDA, but it still helps Chris and Mutant Metals because of that partnership for them to make it.
And they're doing everything start to finish. So you can make a purchase with Rogue. It's a dip attachment. It's just directly helping us out. There's, we don't have to do anything to, for that to be useful to us.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
well, as far as developing, you mentioned you'd like to possibly go from like the hands-on manufacturing every piece to more of a developing different things. You showed me in the short time I've been here. I mean, I've been here for maybe an hour, hour and a half. I think I've seen 3 different things that you've sort of been tinkering with, and you showed one on camera in the tour video, which was pretty cool. So, I guess my question is, are you hoping to partner with other companies to be the developer of those things, rather than piece and part making them here in the shop?
Yeah, that's the idea, is to mainly focusing on American manufacturers.
Yeah.
I get reached out to at least once a week from a Chinese manufacturer saying, hey, we can make this for you. This is our minimum part, all that. And there's a lot of companies now that do that, that do importing. But it's just, I know people that have lost manufacturing jobs, and it sucks. we're not making anything here anymore. And I think COVID kind of showed a lot of that, how vulnerable we are
Dependent. Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
rest of the world
Sure.
making our stuff for us,
If those
on everything.
if the imports stop, whew,
Right.
it shuts down the
Yeah.
supply chain.
So, but it's very difficult to make things in America.
Yeah.
You know, this to start making something, this is what it takes. If you're not going to a shop and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you build this for me?"
Yeah.
And
That's
you
what I
know,
did with microgains. I didn't want to make the vintage gains calibration plates that I came up with. I knew that like in my what I'm already doing in life, I didn't want to make those,
right.
and I didn't want to even facilitate going to a foundry to make them for me and
Mm-hmm.
setting up a space in my garage or anything. So that's why I went to Mike at
Right.
Microgains and said, "Look, do you want to partner on this? Like you're making these plates." I'm not going to rehash my whole pitch that I gave him,
Right.
but a lot of what you just said is the reason I went to him. Because his stuff's made in America, his shop's right here. Like I like that idea that right in the state of Pennsylvania where I live, these things will be made, and this company
Right.
will pack them up and ship them. And I can partner with them. So it's worked out really well. It's been a couple months now, and things are going smoothly. I can't say enough about that. But so having very tiny experience. I mean, it's only one product that I've thought of. I can at least speak to that tiny experience and say that that's been really satisfying for me to have that made in America right here, and not just made in America, but even in my home state, right here in Pennsylvania. Have Mike doing that with microgains. So, what kinds of products are you thinking about? I guess I'd phrase it this way: are there any products outside of the home gym space that you might dabble with, or do you think in the future you're sticking mainly in your lane of fitness industry and weightlifting
I think
products?
most of it will probably be focused on this industry because I know it. Um, I do have, like everybody else, I've thought of ideas,
Yeah,
of making other things. I mean, the ultimate goal is to, hopefully Rogue wants to pick up the snapbacks and, start making those, selling those.
yeah,
The idea is if that happens, or we grow the business to a point we could, we've been talking about building a house forever,
yeah.
just never been able to do it. Because she needs a ranch house, something with easy accessibility to get around. And
Gotcha.
I'd like to build a small shop, maybe a 40 by 60 shop, and turn it into like the ultimate like prototyping shop.
I was going to say that's where that would be the lab.
Some still have the ability to manufacture like small batches of stuff. Maybe put out like the first 50 that we make that
Yeah.
people could jump on and hopefully use
Yeah.
that as a springboard to sell when whoever starts making them. People will already be out talking about them. And
Yeah, you'd get a couple out there in the wild, couple, out there for people to post
Right.
videos in their gyms using it, getting
Yeah.
some feedback. Plus, you could then tinker with it a little bit, revise it a little bit
Yeah.
as you got feedback from those.
That's the
first
idea
people.
too, is to
Yeah.
when we're bringing a product to somebody, it's not just the product, it's also here is how it performed, this is what we learned from making it, this is what we learned from the feedback we got from our customers.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that eases the decision for the manufacturer to take something on.
I would think that would be such a different pitch than just someone coming like me and saying, "Hey, I have this idea for this thing." Someone coming and saying, "Look, I've made this. X number of them are here. This is what we've heard from the customers. Here you go." I think that would put. I mean, I'm just making an inference here, but I think that would put it ahead of just the regular old guy
Right.
saying, "Hey, I have an idea."
And that means more to some manufacturers than other. Like Rogue, I took a dip attachment to Rogue, and a couple days later they had a model made up.
How crazy is that?
And they didn't need a lot of my input. They asked for it. Gave them the approval on it before they started making them. But other smaller companies that maybe they make only selector size equipment or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
and it's like they don't really understand the attachment market or whatever. It's like
Sure.
maybe someone like Prime that makes some more complicated stuff.
Yeah.
I have some more complicated ideas that maybe they would be more suited to make than someone like, Rogue or a company that's putting out tons of volume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that Prime's not putting out volume. I'm sure they are,
Yeah.
but
Well, they're kind of in a
but
different space, I think, than Rogue,
right, and
in
that's
my
kind
opinion.
of like what
Yeah.
I think someone like them that, they understand the market, but they've spent a lot of time in the commercial space and,
Yeah.
maybe transitioning into the home gym space, which is what I think. I think the entire future of the industry is the home gym space.
I do. I mean, I think it's, I don't think commercial gyms are going to go away anytime
No.
soon. There's a purpose and a place for them, and
Right.
there's a preference. Some people prefer commercial gyms, but I see some staying power since the COVID shutdown. I was really curious, like, okay, COVID shutdown, all the gyms are closed. Now everybody wants a home gym.
Right.
But there's been companies that came about during that time that have now drifted away because clearly the sales weren't there once the commercial gyms opened up. But I've seen a lot of people that have stayed and that, are still lifting in their home gyms, and a lot of companies that came about in that time that are still in business and doing well.
Right.
So clearly the customer base is there.
Yeah, and I'm sure it has to do a little bit with customer base and orders, but I think a lot of it's just how difficult it is to make stuff in the U.S. Like it's, Larry from Bulletproof kind of touched on it a little bit where he was talking about, we went to a bunch of U.S. manufacturers and no one would make it, and there's a reason for that. They're complicated pieces. There's a lot of components. You take a lot of time to produce when we're paying people a certain wage versus next to nothing, and
Yeah.
we they don't have the same like EPA guidelines, and
There's just such a
there's
difference.
there's so much friction that whether it's your local government or federal government or whatever that puts on you as a person trying to start a business, especially a manufacturing business or anything that has regulatory body surrounding it, is tough.
I mean,
Equipment here is expensive.
Jake Lemaster from Lemaster Barbell, when he was on Home Gym History, and I was talking to him about his deep dish plates, the first generation were made in Mexico. Now they're made in the United States. But he said part of the reason that they were made in Mexico was that at the time, that company, I mean, it was the best for the order he wanted to place. It was the best he could do. But it was kind of interesting that the way he described it was that it was right on the border of Mexico. So he would like walk into the headquarters of this particular company on United States soil and place his orders and anything. And then right over the border, the company had their foundry that would make all the plates and then truck them.
Right.
So they were technically made in Mexico, but he said all my dealings and everything was right here in the United States. So it was this kind of like right on the border situation.
Right. A lot of U.S. manufacturers are going to require a really high minimum order to hit that.
Well,
hit
that's
that
where
point.
now second generation Lemasters, his company's grown some.
Right.
So that's what he said. Now he's placing the type of orders that he's having them made in the United States. But he said he was really pleased with that first company, but that's why he was there.
Yeah.
So I think that's what American manufacturing is up against, is just that, a livable wage paid to workers that American manufacturing provides isn't provided elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And EPA guidelines, things like that. I mean, it gets pretty wild when you go overseas in terms of what is and isn't looked at in terms of the environment.
Right.
But when it comes to manufacturing here in the United States and different companies and things, I'm happy to see you're coming to Home Gym Con, couple months, April.
That's the plan. Yep.
Yeah, last year at Home Gym Con, I did like a little round table, and one of the questions was, and it was a bunch of people, Bridge Built, Jason from Surplus Strength, Dylan, who was with AbMat at the time, was at the table, and the question was, who do you want to see next year? And my answer to the question was you. I said, I want to see Mutant Metals out here. And they're like, oh, well, he's in Pennsylvania. Can't you just like go see him? I'm like, I know, but I want to see him at Home Gym Con. And the reason why is some of the stuff that I'd seen you posting, you've already paid for your booth. You're already there, so I don't have to sell you on it. I guess what I'm trying to do is just let the viewers and listeners know that there were, I want to say, 6 different partnerships that I just witnessed. I don't even know beyond what I witnessed happen at Home Gym Con between creators and companies, between one company and another company, just from networking and just not networking. It's kind of like a sleazy business
Right.
term, just from hanging out,
Yeah.
because we're just having dinner together and people are talking and they're like, oh, yeah, like we should get together and do that. And then it happened. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, that's really cool. Like I know where that happened. That happened like at dinner at Home Gym Con. So that's the kind of thing, I don't want to set your expectations too high for Home Gym Con, but my hope for you is
I
that
mean, I
as you
think
talk with people,
already
yeah,
have kind of an intimate knowledge of that because this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for guys posting stuff. Joe Gray posted a lot of my stuff in the beginning.
yeah,
Even when he was starting out, just like getting content out there.
garage gym
You know,
competition. Yeah,
Efren
yeah,
posted some stuff. That was another big boost, and guys kept coming in that saw what we were doing. Gluck was another one. A bunch of them. There's way too many to keep going through, but
yeah.
it this wouldn't be this wouldn't exist without everybody kind of just networking and telling this is what I got, go check this out. So
Joe Gray was where I saw a lot of your stuff early on.
yeah, I mean
And
he was buying
yeah,
stuff for me before it was anything, before it was Mutant Metals. It was just
yeah. And
and
he actually, I think, if I scroll back in my messages with Joe, I think he's the one who told me, like, hey, this dude's like an hour from you.
mm,
I was like, really? Like, I had no idea. So, yeah, I got to give a lot of credit to Joe and Garage Gym Competition. And I think Garage Gym Competition does that for a lot of companies,
yeah,
that just by giving away prizes and stuff. Like
yeah,
Nate, who, Deep Dish Globes, who was just on Lift History Podcast, the episode before this one, he mentioned that the reason he learned about microgains and got some microgains was that he won them in garage gym competition.
and I
So
I think as far as like the manufacturing stuff goes, especially in the U.S., that's the only way we could really compete. Is that U.S. is still the hub of like innovation.
yeah,
That's one thing that's why I want to focus on, making new stuff that no one else has done before.
yeah,
Maybe just remaking something like a weight post that someone has done before, but just to do it a way that hasn't been done. And the networking of the community. The only way I see all these shops surviving long term is we got to be helping each other out.
yeah, yeah,
Some shops have capabilities that others don't, or have
sure.
knowledge of different processes, and we're just not going to compete on volume, and Rogue's the best at that.
Yeah,
So, and we all know that Rogue's equipment's more expensive, and there's a reason behind that. And they're about as efficient as you could possibly be. So, that's kind of the benchmark it, of knowing we can't beat that on, not that it's some big world competition, but in a way we have to still fortify our manufacturing here
yeah.
and our economy. And I think the way we make it less fragile is we start making stuff here again.
Well, that's this year at Home Gym Con in a couple months, and I'll be there again doing podcasts. I've already invited you, and I invited Dean from Black Widow. I wanted to put together a roundtable of company owners and fabricators like yourself, because I see a lot of commonality to ask questions like what you're addressing right now. Like how do we coexist here? How do you guys coexist, doing similar things but not the same?
Right.
Because when I looked at Black Widow's booth last year, there were so many impressive things that I don't want to say I just wasn't aware of Black Widow. I knew of Black Widow. I've always heard really good things about Dean and about his company. But before I walked through that booth, I didn't know all the stuff he did. I was really blown away. And then same thing with your company. It's Joe Gray, and then you mentioned Gluck. I follow Gluck's gym, and as I saw your stuff getting out there, I wanted to get people like that at the table. And I'm gonna find one or two more. I haven't confirmed, so I don't want to say their names yet.
Right.
But it'll be you, it'll be Black Widow, and one or two more. similar companies to kind of talk through that. And I think it'll be a really cool roundtable podcast at Home Gym Con. But without stepping on that too much, I guess I'd ask, you've mentioned where you want this to go in the future, if everything were to go the way you wanted it to. But as it stands right now, so just thinking about the present, what do you do here at Mutant Metals to just make sure that you're doing everything you can, but you're not really stepping on the toes of anyone else?
Mainly just, and it's tough to come up with stuff that other people aren't doing. Like, market's super competitive. Once a trend starts, I mean, look at heavy mugs. Yeah.
Everyone has a heavy mug.
Everybody's making them. Everybody has one. It's
or
like
speed pins. I mean,
right.
there
Yeah,
are like
mag pins.
20 different mag pins now out there that you can pick from.
Yeah, right. The second the market sees that they're a big deal, they take off. So
the heavy mugs are funny. So many heavy mugs. And there's a Home Gym Con heavy mug. Shout out to Hogan, Hogan's Gym. He got a heavy mug, and he's trying to coordinate anyone who has a heavy mug to bring it to Home Gym Con and do like a toast.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. So anyway,
hopefully everybody makes it out of that uninjured.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. So, but sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. So, as trends happen,
right? I think it's you kind of have to look at the spots where you stay ahead of those trends a little bit. And a lot of that just comes from, which I have to get back into. I haven't been doing a lot of lifting the past couple of years for various reasons, but a lot of it just comes from training and looking at, what do I want to do in this super limited space, and how do I make that happen best way possible, and then looking at what's already out there and where the gaps are. So a lot of it, I think, is going to come down to just making stuff that people don't know that they want yet. So
that's a great way to put it.
And you have a lot of ideas, a couple really cool ideas coming up. I'm going to try to get one done for Home Gym Con to demo. Awesome. It's going to be close, though. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Well, by the time this episode of Lift History comes out, I have Home Gym History and Lift History. I've got both of them going on. What can I say? I just like frequency. I feel like it's like reps. As many podcasts as I can do, the better. I'll just get better at it. So anyway, the Home Gym History that just came out last week, Jake mentions that, because it's all about Home Gym Con and what I'm looking forward to at Home Gym Con, and Jake mentioned it's pretty cool. There's going to be an award for best release. So, and that award includes, and I don't mind saying it because he said it on Home Gym History last week, the award includes a prize that is complimentary space at next year's Home Gym Con. So that's pretty nice. As well as, I want to say, he said there's a cash prize as well. I'll go back and double check so I don't misstate it. But let's just say it's more than a cute certificate. Like, you're actually getting something for winning best release. So, if you can get it done in time.
I mean, the prototype might be done by then, but as far as a release, I really doubt it.
I'm saying release. It might be debut. So I'll check with Jake.
Yeah, I have to look
Would a
into
prototype and an announcement be enough? Mm-hmm. I'll check with him. I'll get back to you. I'll make sure I get back to you. To see, is it like someone can buy it like at release, or is it announcement that this is a product I'm now making?
I think best case someone's going to be able to demo it at Home Gym Con.
Yeah. So,
but
okay. Well, that might be enough to qualify. And then, hey, it'd be kind of cool to win that award if you manage to pull out the win.
If I could get it to work, there's nothing on the market that exists like it yet.
Very cool. Well, what you just said there, something that people don't realize yet that they want. I'd also put the word need in there, because there's so many things in my gym that I don't need, but that I just want. But there's other things that, for my goals, I need. Like, I'm not going to accomplish certain things in my training if I don't have this piece of equipment that I didn't even know existed 2 years ago. So I think that's also part of it. And, when I look at, for example, your snapback rollers, I want to get those next because I'm having a heck of a time racking my barbell,
Right.
and when I'm squatting, for example, it's annoying stepping out, and I'm not a competitive lifter, so I'm looking for efficiency and safety,
Right.
and having those suckers snap back, that sounds nice to me.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing with everybody in the market is, finding things that don't take up a lot of space, that are, that make lifting more convenient, because as
Yeah.
much as I think we all want to pretend that we're just these stoic, like,
Yeah.
in the gym at 5 a.m. every day, it's not always like that. You got
No.
other stuff going on, and, you know, lifting a lot of times is the last thing of the day for a lot of us. So it's,
At Home Gym Con last year, Steve Clevo said that to me. I met the Clevos, and such a nice couple, really nice to talk to. And he said that we were talking about something about lifting or training, and I think I said to him like, "Oh, so what type of training?" And he said, "Well, that's kind of ironic thing. The company's doing great, but that means my training is suffering. Like, if
that's what it
if
is.
you're busy working, that means you don't have time to
Yeah.
train." And he said that's the ironic thing about a lot of the owners of the companies at Home Gym Con is that they're probably in the worst shape
Yeah.
they've been in a while if their company's
Yeah,
booming.
and it's a problem, because your personal health really does start eating into your ability to work more, and your mental ability and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
I was
for sure.
putting on quite a bit, even though I was working a lot. I was putting on a lot of weight because I was eating super shitty, and
Yeah,
we're eating fast food every day, and that's
exactly.
I've lost about 50 pounds now since the
Nice.
beginning.
Good for you, man.
Just, that was one of the first things I did when we started getting, some of the rogue money coming in, was just eating better food. So,
Yeah,
but it all reflects on the business and everything else. So that we don't, the idea is not to introduce more friction into working out.
yeah, yeah.
It,
Well, especially if you own a home gym. I can only speak for myself and my home gym, but part of the reason I love it is that it is mine. Like everything is suited
right.
to my training, my lifting, because I don't have to cater to anyone else.
Yeah.
My family, that's it. I have 4 children, and they like to come in and mess around. My wife comes in and uses Peloton bike and some light kind of dumbbells and stuff occasionally. That's it. Otherwise, it's just all me, and that's what I like. I mean, that's the reason I have it. Otherwise, I'd just go to a commercial gym.
Right. Set everything up the way that you want it
Yeah.
and
I mean, today's
leave it
Sunday.
like that.
Tonight, I'm going to go in probably for a couple minutes and just set up what I'm doing tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to be deadlifting tomorrow, so I'm going to make sure my platform's clear and put
Right.
out the bar I'm going to use. And
Yeah. It's one less thing that you have to do to get in there.
totally.
Yeah.
But in terms of the products and the things that I buy for my home gym, I buy stuff that helps that. So
Right.
the UDA that I'm taking home, that's perfect because what Hubble said is exactly what I have. I've got some kids that are getting bigger,
Right.
and soon enough they're going to be doing dips, and it'll be really cool to have that. But even just my own training, it'll be cool to have, some variety. And I mean, knurling is the undisputed, in my opinion, in the modern era, as a strength historian that I am, knurling is the undisputed diamond of the modern era of lifting. Like knurling has set the standard for so much of what's produced. The heavy mug you mentioned, it's got a knurled handle, most of them that are produced.
Right.
So yeah, having knurled handles, like one of the like overseas knockoff type dip attachments that I saw recently. It was on Amazon, some company I never heard of. It's like $60. I looked closely at it. I wanted to see the handles. They're foam coated for your comfort.
Right.
And I was like, who in the world wants foam handles while they're
Right.
doing dips? That sounds disgusting. It sounds like I'm going to rip the foam off and fall on my face. But yeah, that's what you get from an overseas company that who knows if they even
Yeah, I mean, they
talk with
most
someone who
likely
does lift.
don't even understand the product, or the
Exactly.
people that are using it. And a lot of these manufacturers manufacture all kinds of different stuff. It's not just exercise
Exactly.
equipment. It's, it could be pots and pans and something
Yeah.
else. You don't know.
Your dip attachment's made from foam coated whatever jump rope handles that they
Right.
happen to stick in there.
Who knows what it is? But, they build them factories, and a lot of them are multi-use. So,
Just pumping them out. Yeah, I could see that.
but Yeah, I mean, as far as knurling goes, like the way that I view having things that are knurled, you know, with the dip attachment or whatever, a lot of people when it first came out, it was why would you need knurling on a dip attachment handle? You know, you're not really gripping it. You're just kind of, but you know, when you understand feedback from the hands, you know, when you're holding on to something, that that base is where everything's coming from, you know. And if if you don't feel confident in your grip on something, whether it could be a bench, it could be a squat, you know, anybody that's done a lot of squatting knows is if your hands something feels off at your hands,
Yeah.
you might as well just re-rack the bar because something bad's gonna happen. You know, you have to have a good solid connection to whatever you're using, and that has to be giving your brain some feedback saying, you know, this is okay to grip. There's a lot of deadlift bars out right now that are super aggressive, and I don't understand that at all because it's inhibitory and
It's not my thing. Yeah.
you know, they're super thin, and the knurl is really sharp. When you make a bar thinner, the sharper the knurl feels. And we take, a lot of people will say that our knurl's really aggressive and really sharp, but you know, it is aggressive from a traditional standpoint, but it's a small knurl, and the whole idea behind it is to be able to grab hold of it and it produce as much friction with your hand as it can without telling you to let it go. So,
well, plus I think, I'm not saying I'll never go into my gym and just bang out some dips, but in my training, most likely I'm going to have some main lifts and then I'm going to do dips. So that means I'm probably going to be sweaty by the time I get to them. And that's where I think, like, I don't want some slick handles I'm going to slip off of, or even powder coats gets a little slick after a while. And I'm probably doing a couple sets of dips. So unless I'm really putting on a belt and doing weighted dips, I'm doing, you know, 10, 12 or so, 3 or 4 sets of that. And yeah, I want something I can hang on to. So that's where the foam handles made me laugh. Like, oh, they're going to be all nasty and moldy and sweaty after a while. It's foam.
I mean, and some companies are getting that too. You see knurl on everything now. You know, bench handles.
Oh,
and, things that don't, you know, to most people probably don't even really require knurl, but it's just that
it's crossed over
aesthetically
the love of
pleasing.
it. Yeah.
It's, you know, it matches
people
everything
just like
else.
it.
It feels good, you know.
Yeah.
So.
But I like the differences in knurling. You know, I mentioned to you before we were on camera Primal Armor and how they were able to just set aside one of their Appalachian bars so I could get it just raw steel, not coated with anything. But something that I wasn't expecting that I really loved was the knurling they have on it, because it's tighter and smaller, but it has just a nice grip for squatting because of that. It's not aggressive, it's not chewing up my hands, but because of the tight kind of nature, it's like a sponge. It like sucks your hand in.
And
if that makes sense. You know?
I think the way you have to look at knurl too is the trend seems to be bigger and bigger knurl. Volcano. You know, these huge peak knurls. It's like laying on a bed of nails. You know, if the nails are huge and they're far apart, they're going to hurt a lot more than if they're small and they're really close together.
I mean, I have generation 1, 2, and 3 Texas Power bars that I've collected, and part of the reason I stuck with them was I like the knurling. But it's like the you know, the 3 bears. You know, it's not too aggressive, it's not too passive. It's right there.
And manufacturers achieve that in a couple of different ways. The first way is to not make a complete knurl, which is what a volcano knurl is. It's you know, it's a pressured knurl where you're not bringing it to a full peak, so you make a little gully at the peak of the knurl and you get that volcano knurl. Or you know, make the knurl smaller, which is what I think everybody should be doing instead of just making incomplete knurls. And I actually, when I was, it's funny because when I was doing my knurling and trying to figure out what type of knurl wheels to use, I actually sat down and did math on like surface area to how, you know, and later confirmed it using like Chat GPT to help with some of the math on
That's
it.
great.
And
You got AI crunching
but
the numbers.
yeah, I mean, when you have a pyramid, if you cut the top off of a pyramid, that that surface at the top is never going to be more than what you cut off of it.
Makes sense.
So, the sum of the sides surface area is always going to be more than just the base.
Okay.
And so you're removing surface area when you don't complete the knurl. The problem is if you use a large knurl and it's peaked, it hurts.
Yeah.
So use
Gonna dig in.
smaller, complete knurls that are well deburred, and you'll have a very functional knurl that doesn't hurt your hands.
So how long did you mentioned on the tour video that I put out before this podcast? We showed like the very first kind of project you worked on, that tempering roller, and right away you said, "Oh, the knurl's horrible. The knurling's crap on this." So how far or how long, how many trial and error kind of projects did it take to kind of dial it in to the point that you're like, "Hey, I think I got something here"?
I mean, it's gotten progressively better since you started to. The first knurls that I put out when I finally started getting okay at knurling were very sharp, and some guys like that and will look for those handles, and try to buy them from people because they're super sharp.
They want the aggressive early
right.
mutant metals.
Yeah, but it took a lot of different tries, and the reason is there's not a lot of good information out on, like, I'm not a machinist. I had to teach myself how to do all the machining.
Yeah.
So, and there's not a lot of good information about how to produce knurl. It's usually with a traditional bump style tool that comes into the piece and displaces the metal, which is what we do kind of, but I ended up having to make a custom tool to get it to work with that lathe, to take pressure off of it. And it took 4 different tool iterations just to get something that holds the wheels the way that I want them.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I mean, I probably knurled a couple hundred things before it was the way I really liked it.
That's awesome. Well, I think I'm not saying it's awesome that you had to keep trying and trying and trying, but I think it's cool to get a little background. When I'm doing dips on my UDA and I feel that knurling, or anyone out there that buys your stuff, to get that background that, this wasn't by happenstance. This wasn't like, well, I guess I'll set it this way and this is what comes out. Like
Started like that.
There's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just tweaking this and dialing this in, even like you said, crunching the numbers, doing the math, figuring out all the different dimensions, like you said, of a pyramid and the base being this. So that's all really cool. I mean, I think I'm going to cut a portion of this podcast and just put it out as like Chris Talks Knurling.
Oh, we could do that for a long time. Yeah.
We'll have a whole follow-up episode. Yeah. Well, hey, when I do get my snapback rollers, I'll make sure to save a little on shipping and come up again if you'll have me, and we'll do a follow-up. And
okay.
That won't be for some time, but we'll do a follow-up in the near future. If you're watching, if you're listening, please drop the code VINTAGE, VINTAGE, when you're buying home gym con tickets. If you haven't bought tickets yet, it's not too late, and code VINTAGE can save you some money. And come on out. You can see companies like Mutant Metals there. You can talk with Chris the same way I just did here on Lift History Podcast, because I think that was the coolest thing about Home Gym Con for me last year. It wasn't, I mean, I liked doing the podcast that I did, but my favorite thing was just hanging out and just talking with people, even off camera, whatever. It wasn't like the recording. It was just getting to know the companies, getting to know the people that made the things that I like, learning about the things that I like. So like I just said about your process to get to the point of the knurling that you have now, figuring that out about other things that I have, like talking with Steve Clevo and seeing his landmine that I have now. It's kind of cool when I use my landmine attachment, knowing where it came from, right, and how the dude kind of thought through it. So looking forward to having you there, Chris. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.